Good morrow, scholars. Welcome back to Star Wars, Return of the Jedi. We are in Chapter 3, page 529. Because again, they're all in one book. The sandstorm obscured everything. Sight, breath, thought, motion. The roar of it alone was disorienting, sounding like it came from everywhere at once, as if the universe were composed of noise and this was its chaotic center. The 7 heroes walked step by step through the murky gale, holding on to one another so as to not get lost. R2 was first, following the signal of the homing device which sang to him in a language not garbled by the wind. 3PO came next, then Leia, guiding Han, and finally Luke and Lando supporting the hobbling Wookiee. Aww. R2 beeped loudly, and they all looked up. Vague, dark shapes could be seen through the typhoon. "I don't know," shouted Han. "All I can see is a lot of blowing sand." "That's all any of us can see," Leia shouted back. "Then I guess I'm getting better." For a few steps, the dark shapes grew darker, and then out of the darkness the Millennium Falcon appeared, flanked by Luke's X-Wing and a 2-seater Y-Wing. As soon as the group huddled under the bulk of the Falcon, the wind died down to something more describable as a severe weather condition. 3PO hit a switch, and the gangplank lowered with a hum. Solo turned to Skywalker. "I've got to hand it to you, kid. You were pretty good out there." Luke shrugged it off. "I had a lot of help." He started toward his X-Wing. Han stopped him, his manner suddenly quieter, even serious. "Thanks for coming after me, Luke." Luke felt embarrassed for some reason. He didn't know how to respond to anything but a wisecrack from the old pirate. "Think nothing of it," he finally said. "No, I'm thinking a lot about it. That carbon freeze was the closest thing to being dead there is. And it wasn't just sleeping, it was a big, wide-awake nothing. A nothing from which Luke and the others had saved him, put their own lives in great peril at his expense, for no other reason than that he was their friend." Oh, okay. This was a new idea for the cocky Solo, at once terrible and wonderful. There was jeopardy in this turn of events. It made him feel somehow blinder than before, but visionary as well. It was confusing. Once he was alone, now he was a part. That realization made him feel indebted, a feeling he'd always abhorred, but now the debt was somehow a new kind of bond, a bond of brotherhood. It was even freeing in a strange way. He was no longer alone. No longer alone. Must be nice. Luke saw a difference had come over his friend, like a sea change. It was a gentle moment. He didn't want to disturb it, so he only nodded. Chewie growled affectionately at the young Jedi warrior, mussing his hair like a proud uncle. I would love that. And Leia warmly hugged him. They all had a great love for Solo, but somehow it was easier to show it by being demonstrated to Luke. "I'll see you back at the fleet," Luke called, moving toward his ship. "Why don't you leave that crate and come with us?" Solo nudged. "I have a promise I have to keep first, to an old friend." "A very old friend," he smiled to himself in afterthought. "Well, hurry back," Leia urged. "The entire alliance should be assembled by now." She saw something in Luke's face. She couldn't put a name on it, but it scared her, and simultaneously made her feel closer to him. "Hurry back," she repeated. "I will," he promised. "Come on, R2." R2 rolled toward the X-Wing, beeping a farewell to 3PO. "Goodbye, R2," 3PO called out fondly. "May the Maker bless you. You will watch out for him, won't you, Master Luke?" But Luke and the little droid were already gone on the far side of the flyer. The others stood without moving for a moment, trying to see their futures in the swirling sand. Lando jarred them awake. "Come on, let's get off this miserable dirtball." Almost literally. His luck here had been abominable. He hoped to fare better in the next game. It would be house rules for a while, he knew, but he might be able to load a few dice along the way. Solo clapped him on the back. And "Guess I owe you some thanks, too, Lando. Figured if I left you frozen like that, you'd just give me bad luck the rest of my life, so I might as well get you unfrozen sooner, as later." "He means you're welcome," Leia smiled. "We all mean to say you're welcome." She kissed Han on the cheek to say it personally one more time. They all headed up the ramp of the Falcon. Solo paused just before going inside and gave the ship a little pat. "You're looking good, old girl. I never thought I'd live to see you again." "That's nice." He entered at last, closing the hatch behind him. Luke did the same thing in the X-Wing. He strapped himself to the cockpit, started up the engines, felt the comfortable roar. He looked at his damaged hand. Wires crossed aluminum, or if you would prefer, aluminium. Bones, like spokes in a puzzle. He wondered what the solution was, or the puzzle for that matter. He pulled back a black glove over the exposed infrastructure, set the X-Wing's controls, and for the second time in his life rocketed off his own planet into the stars. The Super Star Destroyer rested in space above the half-completed Death Star battle station and its green neighbor, Endor. The destroyer was a massive ship, attended by numerous smaller warships of various kinds, which hovered or darted around the great mothership like children of different ages and temperaments. That's cute to think about, even though they're all deadly. Medium-range fleet cruisers, bulky cargo vessels, TIE fighter escorts. The main bay of the destroyer opens, space silent. An Imperial shuttle emerged and accelerated toward the Death Star, accompanied by 4 squads of fighters. Darth Vader watched their approach on the view screen in the control room of the Death Star. When docking was imminent, he marched out of the command center, followed by Commander Jerjerrod and a phalanx of Imperial stormtroopers, and headed toward the docking bay. He was about to welcome his master. I actually did get a chill. Vader's pulse and breathing were machine-regulated, so they could not quicken, but something in his chest became more electric around his meetings with the Emperor. He could not say how. A feeling of fullness, of power, of dark and demon mastery, of secret lusts, unrestrained passion, wild submission. All these things were in Vader's heart as he neared his Emperor. These things and more. When he entered the docking bay, thousands of Imperial troops snapped to attention with monumentous clap. The shuttle came to rest on the pod, its ramp lowered like a dragon jaw. And the Emperor's royal guard ran down, red robes flapping as if they were licks of flame shooting out the mouth to herald the angry roar. They poised themselves as at watchful guard in 2 lethal rows beside the ramp. Silence filled the great hall. At the top of the ramp the Emperor appeared. Slowly he walked down. A small man was he, shriveled with age and evil. He supported his bent frame on a gnarled cane and covered himself with a long hooded robe, much like the robe of the Jedi, only jet black. His shrouded face was so thin of flesh it was nearly a skull. His piercing yellow eyes seemed to burn through all which they stared. When the Emperor reached the bottom of the ramp, Commander Jerjerrod, his generals, and Lord Vader all kneeled before him. The Supreme Dark Ruler beckoned to Vader and began walking down the row of troops. "Rise, my old friend. I would talk with you." That's the best I've got. Usually it's better, but, still with the sore throat. Although I did drink a lot of water before reading, so I was hoping that would have helped. I guess not yet. Vader rose and accompanied his master. They were followed in procession by the Emperor's courtiers, the Royal Guard, Jerjerrod, and the Death Star Elite Guard, with mixed reverence and fear. Vader felt complete at the Emperor's side. Though the emptiness at its core never left him, it became a glorious emptiness in the glare of the Emperor's cold light, an exalted void that could encompass the universe, and someday would encompass the universe, would encompass the universe when the Emperor was dead. I don't know where I got that from. Anyway, for that was Vader's final dream, when he'd learned all he could of the dark power from this evil genius. To take that power from him, seize it and keep its cold light at his own core, kill the Emperor and devour his darkness, and rule the universe, rule with his son at his side. For that was his other dream, to reclaim his boy, to show Luke the majesty of this shadow force, why it was so potent, why he'd chosen rightly to follow its path, and Luke would come with him, he knew. That seed was sown. They could rule together, father and son. His dream was very close to realization. He could feel it. It was near. Each event fell into place as he'd nudged it with Jedi subtlety, as he'd pressed with delicate dark strength. "The Death Star will be completed on schedule, my master," Vader breathed. "Yes, I know," replied the Emperor. "You have done well, Lord Vader." I almost had it and then I lost it. And now I sense you wish to continue your search for the young Skywalker. That went into Yoda. What? Vader smiled beneath his armored mask. The Emperor always knew the sense of what was in his heart, even if he didn't know the specifics. Yes, my master. Patience, my friend, the Supreme Ruler cautioned. You always had difficulty showing patience. In time, he will seek you out, and when he does, you must bring him before me. He has grown strong. Only together can we turn him to the dark side of the Force. Yes, my master. Together they would corrupt the boy. What? The child of the Father, great dark glory. For soon the old Emperor would die, and though the galaxy would bend from the horror of that loss, Vader would remain to rule, with young Skywalker at his side, as it was always meant to be. The Emperor raised his head a degree, scanning all the possible futures. Everything is proceeding as I have foreseen. He, like Vader, had plans of his own, plans of spiritual violation, the manipulation of lives and destinies. He chuckled to himself, savoring the nearness of his conquest, the final seduction of the young Skywalker. They have to be doing it on purpose. Luke left his X-Wing parked. I shouldn't giggle, but I did. At the edge of the water, and carefully picked his way through the adjoining swamp. A heavy mist hung in layers about him. Jungle steam. A strange insect flew at him from out of a cluster of hanging vines, fluttered madly about his head, and vanished. In the undergrowth, something snarled. Luke concentrated momentarily. The snarling stopped. Luke walked on. He had terribly ambivalent feelings about this place, Dagobah, his place of tests, of training to be a Jedi. This was where he'd finally learned to use the Force, to let it flow through him to whatever end he directed it. So he'd learned how caretaking he must be in order to use the Force well. It was walking on light, but to a Jedi it was as stable as earth and floor. Dangerous creatures lurked in this swamp, but to a Jedi none were evil. Voracious quicksand mires waited, still as pools, tentacles mingled with the hanging vines. Luke knew them all now. They were all a part of the living planet, each integral to the Force of which he too was a pulsing aspect. Yet there were dark things here as well. Unimaginably dark reflections of the dark corners of his soul. He'd seen things here. He'd run from them. He'd struggled with them. He'd even faced them. He'd vanquished some of them. But some still cowered here, these dark things. He climbed around a barricade of gnarled roots, slippery with moss. On the other side, a smooth, unimpeded path led straight in the direction he wanted to go. But he did not take it. Instead, he plunged once more into the undergrowth. High overhead, something black and flapping approached, then veered away. Luke paid no attention. He just kept walking. The jungle thinned a bit beyond the next bog. Luke saw it, the small, strangely shaped dwelling, its odd little windows shedding a warm yellow light in the damp rainforest. He skirted the mire and, crouching low, entered the cottage. Yoda stood smiling inside, his small green hand clutching his walking stick for support. "Waiting for you, I was," he nodded. He motioned Luke to sit in a corner. The boy was struck by how much more frail Yoda's manner seemed. A tremor to the hand, a weakness to the voice. It made Luke afraid to speak, to betray his shock at the old master's condition. "That face you make," Yoda crinkled his tired brow cheerfully. "Look I so bad to young eyes?" He tried to conceal his woeful countenance, shifting his position in the cramped space. "No, master, of course not." "I do, yes, I do," the tiny Jedi master chuckled gleefully. "Sick I have become, yes, old and weak." He pointed a crooked finger at his young pupil. "When 900 years old you look as good, you will not." The creature hobbled over to his bed, still chuckling, and with great effort lay down. "Soon I will rest. Yes, forever sleep. Earned it, I have." Luke shook his head. "You can't die, Master Yoda. I won't let you." Trained well and strong with the Force are you, but not that strong. Twilight is upon me, and soon night must fall. That is the way of things, the way of the Force. But I need your help, Luke insisted. I want to complete my training. The great teacher couldn't leave him now. There is still too much to understand. And he'd taken so much from Yoda already, and yet given back nothing. He had much he wanted to share with the old creature. No more training do you require, Yoda assured him. Already know that which you need. Then I am a Jedi? Luke pressed. No, he knew he was not quite. Something still lacked. Yoda wrinkled up his weazened features. Not yet. One thing remains. Vader, you must confront Lord Vader. Sorry, I don't know why I said Lord. Then, only then, a full Jedi will you be, and confront him you will, sooner or later. Luke knew this would be his test. It could not be otherwise. Every quest had its focus, and Vader was inextricably at the core of Luke's struggle. It was agonizing for him to put the question to words, but after a long silence he spoke again to the old Jedi. Master Yoda, is Darth Vader my father? Yoda's eyes filled with a weary compassion. This boy was not yet a man complete. A sad smile creased his face. He seemed almost to grow smaller in his bed. A rest I need, yes, a rest. Luke stared at the dwindling teacher, trying to give the old one strength just by the force of his love and will. Yoda, I must know, he whispered. Your father he is, Yoda said simply. Luke closed his eyes, his mouth, his heart, to keep away the truth of what he knew was true. Told you, did he? Yoda asked. Luke nodded, but did not speak. He wanted to keep the moment frozen, to shelter it here, to lock time and space in this room, so it could never escape into the rest of the universe with this terrible knowledge, this unrelenting truth. A look of concern filled Yoda's face. Unexpected this is, and unfortunate. Unfortunate that I know the truth. A bitterness crept into Luke's voice, but he couldn't decide if it was directed at Vader, Yoda himself, or the universe at large. Yoda gathered himself up with an effort that seemed to take all his strength. Unfortunate that you rushed to face him, that incomplete your training was, that not ready for the burden you were. Obi-Wan would have told you long ago had I let him. Now, a great weakness you carry. Fear for you I do. Fear for you, yes. A great tension seemed to pass out of him, and he closed his eyes. Master Yoda, I'm sorry. Luke trembled to see the potent Jedi so weak. I know. But face Vader again you must, and sorry will not help. He leaned forward and beckoned Luke close to him. Luke crawled over to sit beside his master. Yoda continued, his voice increasingly frail. Remember, a Jedi's strength flows from the Force. When you rescued your friends, you had revenge in your heart. Beware of anger, fear, aggression. The dark side are they. Easily they flow, quick to join you in a fight. Once you start down the dark path, forever will it dominate your destiny. He lay back in bed. His breathing became shallow. Luke waited quietly, afraid to move, afraid to distract the old one and Iota, lest it jar his attention even a fraction from the business of just keeping the void at bay. After a few minutes, Yoda looked at the boy once more, and with a maximum effort smiled gently. The greatness of his spirit, the only thing keeping his decrepit body alive. Luke, of the Emperor beware. Do not underestimate his powers, or suffer your father's fate you will. When gone I am, last of the Jedi will you be. Luke, the Force is strong in your family. Pass on what you have learned. He began to falter, his eyes closed. There is another sky. He caught his breath and exhaled, his spirit passing from him like a sunny wind blowing to another sky. His body shivered once, and he disappeared. Luke sat beside the small empty bed for over an hour, trying to fathom the depth of his loss. It was unfathomable. His first feeling was one of the boundless grief. For himself or the universe, how could one such as Yoda be gone forever? It felt like a black, bottomless hole had filled his heart, the part where Yoda had lived. Luke had known the passing of old mentors before. It was helplessly sad and inexorable. A part of his own growing. Is this what coming of age was then, watching beloved friends grow old and die, gaining a new measure of strength or maturity from their powerful messages? Wait, what? Oh, no, it says passages. I apologize. A great weight of hopelessness settled upon him. Just as all the lights in the little cottage flickered out, for several more minutes he sat, feeling it was the end of everything, that all the lights in the universe had flickered out. The last Jedi sitting in a swamp, while the entire galaxy plotted the last war. A chill came over him, though, disturbing the nothingness into which his consciousness had lapsed. He shivered, looked around. The gloom was impenetrable. Looks like this is going to be another long chapter. He crawled outside and stood up. Here in the swamp nothing had changed. Vapor congealed to drip from dangling roots back into the mire in a cycle it had repeated 1,000,000 times. Would repeat forever. Perhaps there was his lesson. If so, it cut his sadness not a whit. Aimlessly, he made his way back to where his ship rested. R2 rushed up, beeping his excited greeting, but Luke was disconsolate and could only ignore the faithful little droid. R2 whistled a brief condolence, then remained respectfully silent. Luke sat dejectedly on a log, put his head in his hands, and spoke softly to himself. I can't do it. I can't go on alone. A voice floated down to him on the dim mist. Yoda and I will be with you always. It was Ben's voice. I'm stupid. Luke turned around swiftly to see the shimmering image of Obi-Wan Kenobi standing behind him. Ben, he whispered. There were so many things he wanted to say. They rushed through his mind all in a whirl like the churning, puffed cargo of a ship in a maelstrom. But one question rose quickly to the surface above all the others. Why, Ben? Why didn't you tell me? It was not an empty question. I was going to tell you when you had completed your training, the vision of Ben answered, but you found it necessary to rush off unprepared. I warned you about your impatience. His voice was unchanged, a hint of scolding, a hint of love. You told me Darth Vader betrayed and murdered my father. The bitterness he'd felt earlier with Yoda had found its focus now on Ben. Sounds like my family. Ben absorbed the vitriol undefensively, then patted it with instruction. Your father, Anakin, was seduced by the dark side of the Force. He ceased to be Anakin Skywalker and became Darth Vader. When that happened, he betrayed everything that Anakin Skywalker believed. The good man who was your father was destroyed. So what I told you was true, from a certain point of view. A certain point of view? Luke rasped derisively. He felt betrayed, by life more than anything else, though only poor Ben was available to take the brunt of his conflict. Yeah, that sounds like my family, all right. Luke, Ben spoke gently, you're going to find that many of the truths we cling to depend greatly on our point of view. Luke turned, unresponsive. He wanted to hold on to his fury, to guard it like a treasure. It was all he had. He would not let it be stolen from him, as everything else had been stolen. But already he felt it slipping, softened by Ben's compassionate touch. What? I don't blame you for being angry, Ben coaxed. If I was wrong in what I did, it certainly wouldn't have been for the first time. You see, what happened to your father was my fault. Luke looked up with sudden acute interest. He'd never heard this and was rapidly losing his anger to fascination and curiosity, for knowledge was an addictive drug. You got that right. And the more he had, the more he wanted. Sounds like my friend Andrew. He's the only guy that works smarter than me. Well, I mean, there's two others that could be, but I don't know. Where was I? As he sat on his stump, increasingly mesmerized, R2 pedaled over, silent, just to offer a comforting presence. When I first encountered your father, Ben continued, he was already a great pilot. But what amazed me was how strongly the Force was with him. I took it upon myself to train Anakin in the ways of the Jedi. My mistake was thinking I could be as good a teacher as Yoda. I was not. Such was my foolish pride. The Emperor sensed Anakin's power and lured him to the dark side. He paused sadly and looked directly into Luke's eyes as if he were asking for the boy's forgiveness. My pride had a terrible consequence for the galaxy. Luke was entranced. That Obi-Wan's hubris could have caused his father's fall was horrible. Horrible because of what his father had needlessly become. Horrible because Obi-Wan wasn't perfect, wasn't even a perfect Jedi. Horrible because the dark side could strike so close to home, could turn such right, so wrong. Darth Vader must have a spark of Anakin Skywalker deep inside. There is still good in him, he declared. Ben shook his head remorsefully. I also thought he could be turned back to the good side. It couldn't be done. He's more machine now than man, twisted and evil, like Cheney. Luke sensed the underlying meaning in Kenobi's statement. He heard the words as a command. He shook his head back at the vision. I can't kill my own father. You should not think of that machine as your father. It was the teacher speaking again. When I saw what had become of him, I tried to dissuade him, to draw him back from the dark side. We fought. Your father fell into a molten pit. When your father clawed his way out of that fiery pool, the change had been burned into him forever. He was Darth Vader, without a trace of Anakin Skywalker. Irredeemably dark, scarred, kept alive only by machinery and his own black will. That's racist. Luke looked down at his own mechanical right hand. I tried to stop him once. I couldn't do it. He would not challenge his father again. He could not. Vader humbled you when you first met him, Luke, but that experience was part of your training. It taught you, among other things, the value of patience. Had you not been so impatient to defeat Vader, then you could have finished your training here with Yoda. You would have been prepared. But I had to help my friends. And did you help them? It was they who had to save you. You achieved little by rushing back prematurely, I fear. Luke's indignation melted, leaving only sadness in its wake. I found out Darth Vader was my father, he whispered. To be a Jedi, Luke, you must confront and then go beyond the dark side. The side your father couldn't get past. Impatience is the easiest door for you, like your father. Only, your father was seduced by what he found on the other side of the door, and you have held firm. You're no longer so reckless now, Luke. You are strong and patient, and you are ready for your final confrontation. Luke shook his head again, as the implications of the old Jedi's speech became clear. I can't do it, Ben. Then the Emperor has already won. You are our only hope. He. Luke reached for alternatives. Yoda said I could train another to. The other he spoke of is your twin sister, the old man offered, a dry smile. Is it because he's so old and weazened? Why did I say that? She will find it no easier than you to destroy Darth Vader. Luke was visibly jolted by this information. He stood up to face this spirit. Sister? I don't have a sister. Once again, Obi-Wan put a gentle inflection in his voice to soothe the turmoil brewing in his young friend's soul. To protect you both against the Emperor, you were separated when you were born. The Emperor knew, as I did, that one day, with the Force on their side, Skywalker's offspring would be a threat to him. For that reason, your sister has remained safely anonymous. Luke resisted this knowledge at first. He neither needed nor wanted a twin. He was unique. He had no missing parts save the hand whose mechanical replacement now flexed tightly. Pawn in a castle conspiracy, cribs mixed, siblings switched and parted, and whisked away to different secret lives. Impossible. He knew who he was. He was Luke Skywalker, born to be a Jedi turned Sith Lord. What? Born to a... There we go. Sorry. Raised on Tatooine, a Tatooine sand farm by Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru, raised in a life without frills, a hard-working, honest pauper, because his mother... What was it about his mother? What had she said? Who was she? What had she told him? He turned his mind inward, to a place and time far from the damp soil of Dagobah, to his mother's chamber, his mother and his sister. his sister, Leia. I just watched the movie not that long ago, so yeah. I like rewatching all the Star Wars movies. Leia is my sister, he exclaimed, nearly falling over the stump. Your insight serves you well, Ben nodded. I did. He quickly became stern, though. Bury your feelings deep down, Luke. They do you credit, but they could be made to serve the Emperor. Luke tried to comprehend what his old teacher was saying. So much information, so fast, so vital, it almost made him swoon. Seriously, this author has to be doing it on purpose. Ben continued his narrative. When your father left, he didn't know your mother was pregnant. Your mother and I knew he would find out eventually. But he wanted to keep you both, or we wanted to keep you both as safe as possible for as long as possible. So I took you to live with my brother Owen on Tatooine, and your mother took Leia to live as the daughter of Senator Organa on Alderaan. Wait, what? I'm confused. Luke settled down to hear this tale as R2 nestled up beside him, humming in a subaudible register to comfort. Ben too kept his voice even so that the sounds could give solace when the words could not. The Organa family was highborn and politically quite powerful in that system. Leia became a princess by virtue of lineage. No one knew she'd been adopted, of course. But it was a title without real power, since Alderaan had long been a democracy. Huh. Even so, the family continued to be politically powerful, and Leia, following in her foster father's footsteps, became a senator as well. That's not all she became, of course. She became the leader of her cell in the alliance against the corrupt Empire. And because she had diplomatic immunity, she was a vital link for getting information to the rebel cause. That's what she was doing when her path crossed yours, for her foster parents had always told her to contact me on Tatooine if her troubles became desperate. Luke tried sorting through this multiplicity of feelings. The love he'd always felt for Leia, even from afar, now had a clear basis. But suddenly he was feeling protective toward her as well, like an older brother, even though for all he knew she might have been his elder by several minutes. But you can't let her get involved now, Ben, he insisted. Vader will destroy her. Vader, their father, perhaps Leia could resurrect the good in him. She hasn't been trained in the ways of the Jedi, the way you have, Luke. But the Force is strong with her, as it is with all of your family. That is why her path crossed mine, because the Force in her must be nourished by a Jedi. You are the last Jedi now, Luke. But she returned to me, to learn and grow, because it was her destiny to learn and grow, and mine to teach. He went on more slowly, each word deliberate, each pause emphatic. You cannot escape your destiny, Luke. He locked his eyes on Luke's eyes, and put as much of his spirit as he could into the gaze to leave it forever imprinted on Luke's mind. Keep your sister's identity secret, for if you fail, she is truly our last hope. Gaze on me now, Luke. The coming fight is yours alone, but much it will depend on its outcome, and it may be that you can draw some strength from my memory. There is no avoiding the battle, though. You cannot escape your destiny. You will have to face Darth Vader again. Yeah. Okay, we've got that much left. Let's see. We have chapter 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. I think it's 9 chapters. And let me see. So 4 more days until my family goes to see Star Wars. So I will have 1 chapter left. I think. So one of these days I'm going to have 2 chapters uploaded for Star Wars, because I would like to get through this book before the 18th. So since I should be off Thursday no matter what, I think I'll upload the last of the book, like every single chapter that's left that day, and then I'll go up to the movie theater and watch Star Wars all night, because my family's going at 8, and then I'm gonna watch again with my friends at 11:30, and I'm I have half a mind to stay up there, and there's a 2:30 in the morning showing of IMAX 3D, and I would very much like to see that one also. The only thing is I work on Friday, so yeah. Anyway, I'm excited. Also, who could have seen that coming? I mean, other than everybody. Anyway, well, to be fair, I had no idea. Anyway, I'm being silly. Thank you guys for watching. I'm about to start on my next chapter of New Moon. I don't remember what happens next, so it's going to be a surprise for everybody who hasn't read it, doesn't remember what happened, or would just like to relive it. Until next time, goodbye everybody.